Switch myself on. Thank you everyone for attending the meeting of Planning Committee on Tuesday 19th of December 2023. I'm Councillor June Molyneux, Chair of the Committee. Councillor Alex Hilton is Vice Chair. Please note the meeting is being streamed live on YouTube. If you're in attendance as a member of the public who is registered to speak, please note you have a time limit of up to 3 minutes. The legal officer will operate a stopwatch and confirm when your time runs out. You should then finish. You're in the middle of making a point, wind up with a few seconds and finish, otherwise you will be muted. To assist in following the evening's proceedings, a pack's been prepared and is available online, containing each item's report, plans, presentations and any addendum. After officers have presented the report, any speakers and have made their representation, I'll invite members to speak and make comments. When you want to speak, please raise your hand when invited and remember to use your microphone and reference the paragraph number to allow everyone to follow. Please keep in mind that some people require captions and/or lip reading to follow the proceedings, so speak slowly and clearly and face the microphone, please. Please can everyone ensure their phones are turned to silent. We're not expecting a fire drill, so if the alarm sounds, please exit the way you came in, because it's real. I've had apologies from Councillor Derbyshire, and Councillor Singh is here as a substitute. With that, I'll move on to declarations of any interests. Members are reminded of their responsibility to declare any pecuniary interest in respect of matters contained in the agenda. If you have a pecuniary interest, you must withdraw from the meeting. Normally, you should leave the room before the business starts to be discussed. You do, however, have the same right to speak as a member of the public and may remain in the room to enable you to exercise that right and then leave immediately. In either case, you must not seek to improperly influence a decision on the matter. Have I got any declarations of interest? Councillor Platt.
It's the same one from the last planning meeting, sorry. I have a personal interest only because I work for Eccleston Parish Council and they put their objection into the Chorley Rugby Club application, which is at A. And I think we discussed last time that because I'm their employee, that's okay for me to speak at this meeting still.
Okay, yeah,
Cheers,
that's fine.
Chair.
Yeah. I'm going to hand over to the Vice Chair for that item for 3A. Okay. With that, item 2 are the minutes of the meeting the Tuesday the 5th of December. Can somebody move those minutes, please? Thank you, Councillor Whittam. Somebody seconded. Thank you, Councillor France. All those in favour? Thank you. That's okay. Oh, I think that was my iPad doing something. There are 6 planning applications to be determined. all of your plans will be up there. As we do it, let's go to the agenda. For the benefit of the public, the speaking arrangements are as follows. Officers will summarise the report. Registered speakers will be invited to speak in the following order: objector, supporter, parish or town councillor, ward councillor, applicant or agent. All registered speakers will be allowed to speak for 3 minutes, apart from a ward councillor who may speak for up to 5 minutes. In the event that all speakers are against an application, as chair, I may grant the applicant or representative a time extension. I would respectfully ask members of the public who have not registered to speak to remain quiet throughout the proceedings. And with that, I'll leave you in the capable hands of the Vice Chair. Oh, take that with me. It doesn't make any more strange noise.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, everybody. So, right, this is item 3A, Chorley Rugby Union Club, Chancery Road, Astley Village, pages 7 to 42 on your report. There is an update on the addendum. Adele is going to present the item. Officer recommendation is that outline planning permission is to be approved subject to conditions and a section 106 agreement. I have 2 registered speakers. I've got the supporter, Mike Pete. Hi there, Mike. And the applicant, Graham Brown. Brilliant. Okay, so Adele, over to you to present the report. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Good evening, everybody. This application seeks outline planning permission for the erection of up to 16 dwellings, with all matters reserved except for access, which would be taken from Westway. Members will recall that a decision was deferred at the last committee meeting to allow time for members to visit the site and so that clarification could be sought from Lancashire County Council in relation to pedestrian safety. The site visit took place last Thursday, and LCC have provided further rationale setting out why they consider the access arrangements and safety implications to be acceptable, and a summary of their comments is provided on the addendum. The application site is located on part of the Chorley Rugby Club site, which is positioned between Chancery Road and Westway and is located within the settlement area of Chorley. The site is allocated for housing and sport and recreational facilities within the Chorley local plan. The wider site has been developed to provide upgraded rugby facilities supported by a residential development of 50 dwellings to the north of the site. The application site is surplus to the overall redevelopment with no specified plan for its use, whilst it was previously part of a golf driving range. Despite the allocation for housing, an assessment must be carried out in relation to policy HW2 of the local plan, which seeks to protect land for sport and recreation. The site is unlikely to be brought forward in any formal sports use, as it would be impractical to do so. As such, its loss would not lead to an appreciable deficit and does not satisfy a current recreational need. The site does not make a significant visual contribution to the character of the area and is considered to meet the criteria of policy HW2. It must also be recognised that the council cannot currently demonstrate a 5-year housing supply, and therefore the tilted balance must be engaged in line with the provisions of the framework. The benefits of the development are set out in detail in the report with associated weightings and comprise a contribution towards housing supply, the provision of affordable housing on site, economic benefits through supporting jobs during construction, and the harms arising from the proposed development relate to the loss of trees in order to create the access and the loss of land designated for sport and recreation. However, these are considered to be limited for the reasons set out in the report. LCC Highways, as I said, have confirmed that they have no objections and are of the opinion that the proposed development would not have a significant impact on highway safety, capacity or amenity in the immediate vicinity of the site. Other technical matters, including ecology and drainage, are considered to be acceptable and in accordance with the provisions of the development plan, subject to appropriate mitigation. Overall, the proposed development is considered to be acceptable in principle, and it is recommended that the application is approved subject to the conditions that are set out in detail in the addendum. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Adele. So, Mr. Pete, it's over to you.
Thank you, Vice Chair and other committee members, for the opportunity to speak in support of this application this evening. Firstly, I just wanted to explain who I am. I'm Mike Pete. I'm a chartered civil engineer. I'm a member of the Institution of Highways and Transportation and also a member of the Institution of Civil Engineers. In the past, I've operated in a number of senior positions in local authorities, but more recently I run a company providing technical advice on highways and transport matters. I just wanted to stress that the applicant takes seriously pedestrian highway safety. I also wanted to mention about the point that the committee mentioned last time was about the junction form. The junction at the sports hub required a right turn lane because of the traffic impact assessment that was shown, significant levels of traffic at certain times. In contrast though, the application in front of you would a simple priority junction would suffice because it was shown that there would be relatively lower levels of traffic generated. The other thing I wanted to draw is the dedicated pedestrian and cycle route will be segregated, so it should offer a reasonable walking distance to a range of facilities, including local bus stops. It was mentioned about the assessment by the highways officer, and in that it did assess a number of facilities. It did allude to Westway potentially being a shorter route, but I just wanted to stress though that the access into the sports hub doesn't have any walking facilities, there's no footways, so it doesn't actually encourage walking along there or into that site. The officer also mentioned about walking distances and quoted an upper level of 1,200 metres. That's in a nationally recognised piece of guidance, but in that document there is some upper levels of 2 kilometres that's seen as reasonable, and that's also supported in 2 other publications, a national one, Manual for Streets, and also a study by White Young Green, which showed that 2 kilometres is considered to be a reasonable walking distance, particularly for certain types of trips, so like access to schools and commuting. So certainly the dedicated cycle facility and walking route via Chancery Road will certainly be well within inside that 2 kilometre distance. And it should provide a safe and convenient means of access to a range of facilities. Thank you.
Lovely, thank you very much. Right, Mr. Brown, over to you, sir.
Good evening. My name is Graham Brown. I'm chairman of the Chorley Community Trust, the registered charity, and the applicant for this evening. I trust that the additional response received from LCC Highways Development Control, along with the statement in support given by Mr. Peat this evening, have sufficiently answered the questions raised by members at the last committee. I'd like to thank you for your time visiting our Brookfield site last week. Whilst the purpose of the visit was to discuss the application, I hope that the members are also able to appreciate the scale and the potential of the facility within the borough of Chorley. As a registered charity, we have ambition to provide the people of Chorley and the wider area a facility that we can all be very proud of. And all revenue from the sale of this land will go towards the improvement of the facilities and the provision of a mixed sporting and community to give activities to benefit thousands of people. I sincerely hope that the members are mindful to follow officer recommendation this evening, and in doing so, assist the trust in our ambition to expand our positive network in the community. Thank you.
Lovely, thank you very much. So I don't have any more registered speakers, so I'll open the floor at members. It's over to you. Someone like to speak on this, please? Councillor Moore, thank you.
I suppose somebody has to start. I heard the concerns at the last meeting and went on a site visit, and I've looked at the exit onto Westway and the options to walk along. In fact, we walked along there, which I have to say, no one in their right mind would do it from choice. If I certainly wouldn't have done it, except I felt I had to on this occasion. You take your life in your hand if you walk along there. So, and following that, LCC have come back and reiterated that they feel that the distances that have to be travelled, it is far more expedient to go via the pedestrian way than to come through the vehicle access. Human nature being what it is, yes, there will be some who do that, but we can't build into planning everything that will stop people doing what they want to do. But at the moment, I'm quite happy to recommend acceptance of the officer's report.
Thank you, Councillor Norwood. Anyone else like to speak? Councillor Platt.
Cheers. I thank members for coming to the site visit, and yes, as Councillor Morwood said, you would take your life into your hands, but unfortunately, if you have a site which is close to items which young people want to go to, it will happen, and it's a danger. And I think that county's been extremely misguided when they've done their report, because they haven't accounted for any local knowledge whatsoever. They've totally missed all the sites to the south and the southeast of this site, such as this site is in Eccleston, so a lot of the children will want to go to an Eccleston school, not an Astley Village school, so they haven't considered that. Astley Village has no shops. It has a shopping area, but it doesn't actually have any shops in it. Eccleston does. Not only that, it has a major Tesco, so people will go in that direction, not into Astley Village. It's got a McDonald's, which is a considerable draw to young people and older people such as me. That's not been considered. Young people want to go to interesting places. It has a skate park, which is the biggest in the area for miles, but they haven't considered it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different things there that they haven't considered. 5 things, and they've considered 7 things, which I probably wouldn't have even put on the list as a popular draw for children to walk to. Hospital. If they had to go to hospital, they'd go with the parents in the car. They wouldn't walk along Westway. So why have they even put it in the list? It belies belief that they come back with this report with no local knowledge at all. It just looks like they've completely ignored the point of why we asked them for more information. The vehicle route is not about capacity and whether it should have a feeder lane and how many car vehicles. It's about the direction that you're sending residents in. The gated access will just be discarded within weeks, and the gated access is purely there so they don't have to build a 3-metre path, because that's expensive. So they build the gated access, they put a gate on it, before you know it, someone's got it off the hinges because they don't want to have a code or whatever it is that they're suggesting that they should use to stop your bike, get off your bike, open the gate, shut the gate, get back on your bike and carry on your way. It's just not going to happen. The gate's just going to disappear within weeks, which means that they don't get the right sort of pavement in the right area because we went for a gated access, which just will not survive. All those points are really important points, and they're a matter of safety. And I just think that it's unfortunately an accident waiting to happen to not accommodate for people walking along Westway. I'm not advocating it's a good idea. I'm not. It's a bad idea. But if they don't make safety measures to ensure they either don't or put pavements in, it will happen, and someone unfortunately will come a cropper. And I'll leave it there for the moment. Thanks very much.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Platt. Councillor G.
Thanks, Chair. Excuse me. Agree with everything that Councillor Platt has said. I would like to go on a different angle. This site got planning permission. I'm not quite sure when, but it's well over 10 years ago. It's quite a long time. In that time, it's been a pain for the people that live around there. It's been derelict for a long time. It looks derelict now. If you could put the photos back up, the entrance to the site. Just want to show yeah, that one. It looks very nice there, but if you actually walk there on the left-hand side, I didn't count them, but there must be in excess of 15 cars. I wouldn't say cars, actually, vans, derelict, really derelict. They've been there for quite a long time. On the right-hand side, there's, don't know what to call it, a gym, which is a pain to the people that are living there because it's noisy. They're saying that this is a hub for the community. I beg to differ. This is it's not a hub. At the moment, it's nothing. You've got a playing field that is overused. it should be for rugby. They're using it for all sorts of things. So the rugby club can't play on it. In fact, I think they've moved them. They now to somewhere else because they can't play on it. So it's the sports. It's not there that it's designated for. The land that you're going to build on should be used for sports. That's what the planning application was when it was originally planned. That was for sports, not to build houses, not for sports. We do very well in Chorley for sports, but we can do better. And one of the things is the rugby that we need to do. They say they need that to spend money. What do they need to spend money? Not on the sports, because the impression I get that they're not interested in sports. They're only interested in the clubhouse. I might be wrong, but that's all I think they're interested. They want the money to have the clubhouse. I do get that they're not interested in the community. They say they're a community spirit, but the people around there don't. They had an event quite a few months ago, and it caused havoc around there. There was no organisation. There was nothing. So yes, I'm against it, as on the highways ground, but on the sports ground as well. That it's not being used for what it should be, and that is a sports designation and not housing.
Okay, Councillor Southern.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, the point I raised at the last meeting I had, Chair, was the objections raised by Sport England, which again I've studied in great detail. It's a report actually that runs to some 12 pages. Sorry, can I just ask, Adele, can I ask, did we contact Sport England or Northern Planning Sport England as regards this, as we were asked to do? Did they receive? Because I can't see any correspondence from...
Through Chair, essentially, no, the Sport England consultation is simply that, it's the consultation response. They have a general objection to any loss of any playing field or potential playing field. If members are minded to approve this application, then although there is a Sport England objection, because the playing field isn't associated with an educational establishment, i.e. a school or a college, it's not an application that would be referred to government for consideration. But the comments that are raised by Sport England are raised to any development of any playing field. So we would not enter into dialogue with them. The actual assessment about the loss of the playing field is set out in detail in the report. So I've got nothing further to add than what's already in the report.
Fine. Yeah, only the point that I believe Sport England made, and which is one of the reasons they objected to it, was there doesn't seem to be any mitigation in terms of what we're getting back, which seemed to fall, while they were saying, around about Section 43 of National Planning and Policy Framework and Section 99. In terms of mitigation, are we aware of any other sports or other fields or areas that have been earmarked, not so much within that area there, but across the borough of Chorley?
Well, obviously the council has its adopted strategy for sports and playing pitches, so all the anticipated development is set out clearly within that document. That's an adopted document of this council. But the development would require contributions to other typologies of public open space, and again, that's detailed in the report.
Yeah, I took up on that that point, Adele. The argument that's been proffered as regards the use of this field is the fact that it's of no use. It's not particularly required. It's surplus to requirements. But would I be right in thinking that is surplus to requirements, possibly of Chorley Community Trust, but not necessarily to Chorley Borough?
I mean, essentially, it's a privately owned facility, so it's not under the control of the council.
Yeah, I appreciate what you're saying there, Adele. What I'm more getting at is the fact that, from Sport England's point of view, it's not so much the fact that it's surplus to Chorley Community Trust requirements, it's the requirements to Chorley Borough as a whole, of which that was subscribed. Is that your understanding? Or have I got that wrong?
No, there is, but then there's the mitigation for the contribution towards the wider development of pitches elsewhere in the borough to mitigate against that loss. So it's, I think it's 25,000 and 25,500 towards playing pitches across the borough. So the weighting and the assessment about the loss again is detailed towards the end of the report.
Yeah, it doesn't seem to be so much the pecuniary aspect that Sport England object to on this one. It seems to be the fact that it's a loss of playing field and it's not being mitigated anywhere else within the borough in terms of other usable grounds which are used for sports facilities. So can I ask, in terms of the National Planning and Policy Framework, paragraph 99, does the argument proffered by Sport England meet that requirement, i.e. does it fall outside this remit?
Again, I mean, I can only say it comes down to the planning balance. I mean, ultimately, developments generally conflict with one area of either the development plan or the National Planning Policy Framework per se. So yes, there is conflict, but the wider benefits of the scheme weigh in favour of the development is ultimately the response, the conclusion of the report. So whilst you will, you know, regularly see conflict with the policy framework, either at a national or a local level, you know, the assessment that needs to be done in the planning decision making is it's not black, it's not white, it's shades of grey in the middle, and it's what are the benefits that outweigh the harms. So that the harms are quite clearly listed in the report, and then the benefits are quite clearly listed in the report, and the planning balance against a backdrop of a tilted balance that is engaged in terms of a presumption in favour of the development. That's what the committee need to do. They need to come to that balanced judgment, you know, against the backdrop of the tilted balance, understanding the harms, understanding the benefits, and see where the planning balance ends up. And the conclusion of the report is that is one to support the application, and that's why it's recommended for approval.
Yeah, I get that perfectly, Adele, and obviously this is not your conclusion. This is the conclusion of a consultee that we've gone out to, and this is their conclusion. And the reason why I flag it with is not to discredit or in any way undermine what you're saying. I'm merely picking up on what this some 12-page document that Sport England put together, which, to be fair on reading it, it seems to be completely against this. Because set aside the pecuniary aspect, there's no other land within the borough of Chorley that's sort of coming back to it for this use. And to put it into a simple question, does this application comply with Section 99 of National Planning Framework or not? Does it comply with it?
I can only reiterate what I've said. There is conflict with
Sorry
that,
to put you on the spot,
with
Adele.
the provisions of that.
Yeah.
I can't really add to
Yeah,
what I've said.
I get
mean,
that.
the only thing I can say in addition is that, you know, there are lots of examples of developments being approved on playing fields where there is conflict with that paragraph and those provisions of the local the National Planning Policy Framework.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Adele, and ultimately, it's the reason I asked the question, because I do place quite a bit of considerable weight to this, and the fact that major consultee like Sport England and Northern Planning have raised objections to this. I would say at this stage, I'll be minded to refuse the application, and I'll propose that we reject it on the basis that it doesn't comply with National Planning and Policy Framework, paragraph 99 or paragraph 73. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, Councillor Whittaker.
Chair, listen to the arguments. I go back to paragraph 10, and it says the County Council Highway Services professional body do not have any objections or are of opinion that the proposed development will not have a significant impact on highway safety, capacity or amenity. I respect that viewpoint. There's a professional body. The Speaker talked about the resources that would accrue from this will be Bookshaw Village, Astley Village is well provided with sports facilities, to my certain knowledge. They have recreation areas and stuff like that. And hopefully some of the resources that will accrue from this, as we indicated earlier, may be available to provide facilities elsewhere in the borough. So I'm in favour of it, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Platt.
I would second Councillor Southern's proposal that, but I would like to have had the pedestrian safety angle on it, as it doesn't, I don't think it has the proper provisions for pedestrians, And I believe that it's contrary to Plan BNE1 of the Chorley Local Plan, which is the 2012-26 plan. And just to correct members, that this site is in Eccleston. It's not in Buckshaw, it's not in Astley Village, it's in Eccleston.
I'm going to bring Adele back there.
Yeah, there's a couple of things I want to correct myself. Is in my presentation I mentioned that the conditions were set out on the addendum. That was a fraudulent slip. They are actually in the body of the report, so apologies for any confusion there. The actual application has been publicised as being in the parish of, in the ward of Eccleston. The address is given by an applicant and is reflected by the postcode, which the council has no control over. So that is the actual postal address of the site. It's not the ward that it sits within. So I accept that it's confusing, but it's actually set out on the national database of postcodes, so I don't have any control over the actual address of the site. Thank you.
I'm just going to bring the legal officer in just for a bit of clarification here.
So in terms of the amendment that was put forward by Councillor Southern, there was aspects around, contrary to the NPPF, paragraph 99, but then Councillor Platt made some further comments. So Councillor Southern, are you willing to second that element to include the parts that Councillor Platt indicated? So it's, I think she said it was contrary to policy BNE1 of the local plan.
On that basis, as no, I would suggest that they made it under a separate proposition. This proposition here clearly appertains to a policy framework of national planning policy framework. It's specific. If Councillor Platt wishes to put a separate proposition, then by all means. I don't really see how we can tag that on the back of it, unless
Through your chair. So through your chair, so we have a proposal for an amendment from Councillor Southern, which hasn't been seconded, and I believe Councillor Platt also has made a proposal separately in respect of the aspect around the traffic, and it's contrary to BNE1.
Councillor Platt.
I will second Councillor Southern's proposal, just because if we're splitting them up, I don't believe that there'll be support for both, and both can't go through, obviously. They either need to be together or they need to be one or the other.
So are you prepared to withdraw your second amendment for refusal?
I withdraw as a proposal, but I'm not too sure whether we can include the fact that the committee is agrees that Westway is a dangerous place to walk. I mean, even Councillor Morwood said he didn't want to be there, but he had to be. It isn't the place that people should be walking down.
Okay, I think just for the committee at the moment, so Councillor Southern has made a proposal for refusal due to the application being contrary to paragraph 99 of the National Planning Policy Framework. Are you happy to second?
Yeah.
That? So that's seconded. So that's the amendment for refusal for that reason. That's seconded. Okay. If you want to make an amendment, another proposal for a second amendment for refusal, or do you want me to remove that?
I don't believe we can have 3 proposals on the table, because we'll have an approval and 2 rejections.
We can, yes. I'm happy that we can have an additional proposal if you want to.
Go on then, let's throw it in. Let's have a third one on the table. Don't know which order you might take them in though, but I would propose that the pedestrian safety is jeopardised by, and it will be contrary to BNE1 of the Chorley Local Plan 2012-2016.
Right, okay. So you've seconded the original proposal by Councillor Southern, and you've also proposed a second reason for refusal. That hasn't been seconded yet. So seconded by, okay. Adele, did you want to come back?
I did, yes, because I'm a little bit confused. I don't know about anybody else, but I'm a little bit confused. Just to confuse matters even further, but just for the sake of accuracy in the record keeping, we've had a new National Planning Policy Framework published this afternoon. So the paragraph that you've referenced in the proposed refusal is now paragraph 103. Just for the record, yeah.
Are you happy to amend your proposal, Councillor Southern, to the new paragraph?
I'm so sorry, Adele. I did not have time to digest the entire contents of the updated referendum on National Planning and Policy Framework. I will be happy to take that on their order as it's now 99 is now being superseded by paragraph 103. Thank you.
Okay. Does any other member want to make any comments here? Councillor Morwood.
Thank you, Chair. Is Exton Villa in Exton? Because they're about to put some new 3G pitches in over the next year from monies from the council. Sports England, they'd object to any piece of grass that was being taken away. That's their job. They're not rushing to say we'll put money in to keep it. They just object to any piece of grass that gets taken away. So it's all well and good that they write 12 pages, but most of it, probably 10 of it was standard anyway, and they probably don't know this piece of land from any other piece of land, except that it's green grass. The applicants are after the funding to improve the situation. It's all well and good going over past history and that it didn't work very well when it came in at first and the people objecting and it was a mess. And so that's been and gone. We're not here to go over history. This is the application in front of us and they wish to improve the situation. And I'm sure if they've got any sense, all those vans and so forth that are blighting as far as I'm concerned, are blighting the area and so forth, they will soon get rid of those because they'll never get the thousands of people who want to come there and enjoy the facility that if they improve it, if that's what they're confronted with when they arrive. So I stress that the application before is solid, and again I reiterate that I'm happy to support the propose the recommendation to support the officer. It's been seconded, I believe. So,
Councillor G. Can you turn your microphone on?
Yeah, sorry.
Thank
I think there's quite a big difference between taking grass off and putting aquaturf and getting rid of sporting fields, which what they're doing now. They're actually taking it away, it's for housing, and all that land should be used for sports and not for housing. And I also disagree that the money that they get for that from the housing, if it is passed, will go into facilities for sports. I truly believe that he'll go into the clubhouse to make the club a better place. And I hope that never 1,000 people go to that place, because the road structure and the parking, which is non-existent really, will not be able to take it. Thank you.
Okay, so just to clarify where we're at now, we've had 2 proposals for refusal that have had seconders. Councillor Morwood has proposed officer recommendations. Is there anybody that would like to second the officer recommendations? Councillor Whittaker, thank you. Yeah. Okay, just on the advice and legal officer, I'm just going to take a short adjournment while we clarify a few things here. All right, thank you. Right, thank you for that. So this is actually quite an unusual situation that we've had two proposals for refusal. So on our Vice and Legal Officer, we just checked the Constitution. What we need to do is we need to vote on the first amendment first. So that's Councillor Southern's proposal, seconded by Councillor Platt, that this is contrary to paragraph, is it 101, the new one, of the 103 of the NPPF. If that then fails, we will then move on to the second amendment put forward by Councillor Platt and seconded by Councillor G, which the application is contrary to policy BNE1. If that then fails, we will take the vote for officer recommendations proposed by Councillor Morwood and seconded by Councillor Whittaker. Is everybody clear on that now? Lovely. Okay. Final chance. Would any member like to make any further comment on this before I move to the vote? I get all the good ones, don't I? Right, okay. So we will go for the vote for the amendment for refusal proposed by Councillor Southern, seconded by Councillor Platt, for the reasons given by Councillor Southern with the update of the paragraph reference from Adele. So this is to refuse officer recommendations, refuse permission for the reasons given. Right, Councillor Molyneux isn't going to be voting on this item, so that motion is lost. Okay, so I'll just give Dan a second to get ready for the next one. You ready? Okay, so this is, now we're voting for the amendment put forward by Councillor Platt and seconded by Councillor G, that planning application should be refused as it's contrary to policy BNE1. Is that correct? Everyone happy? Right, we'll take the vote on that now. Okay, so that vote is also lost. So we will now move on to the vote for officer recommendations that planning permission is approved for the reasons set out in the report, proposed by Councillor Morwood and seconded by Councillor Whittaker. I'll go over to Taz to confirm that now.
Thank you, Chair. So members have decided to grant planning permission in respect of the erection of 16 dwellings with all matters reserved except for access. And that is obviously subject to the condition in Section 106 agreement in the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Taz. Right, we've got there. So for the members of the public who've come this evening, planning permission has been approved. Thank you for your patience. If you come for just this item, feel free to leave the chamber now. Thank you.
Land adjacent to Rossendale Drive, Adlington, pages 42 to 116, with an update on your addendum. Mike's going to present this item, the recommendation planning permission granted, subject to conditions, and there are no registered speakers. Over to you, Mike.
Thank you, Chair. The application site is identified as safeguarded land under policy BNE3 of the Chorley Local Plan and is located immediately outside the settlement boundary of Adlington, which is an urban local service centre as identified by policy 1 of the Central Lancashire Core Strategy. The site is located towards the southern end of Adlington and consists of approximately 5 hectares of agricultural land, with scattered mature trees, and is framed by woodland corridors. The site is surrounded by a railway line to the southwest, the River Douglas to the southeast, and housing to the north. The application seeks full planning permission for the erection of 137 dwellings, of which 30% will be affordable, together with associated roads, car parking, play area, and landscaping works. All dwellings will be 2 storeys, other than 2 apartment blocks located along the south-western site boundary, which will be 3 storeys. Representations have been received from approximately 80 addresses in objection to the proposal, including from Heath Charnock Parish Council, citing issues including residential amenity, highways and access, flood risk, water pollution, and harm to ecological receptors. Adlington Town Council had initially objected to the proposal. However, as outlined in the addendum report, having reviewed the amended plans, they have no objection to the proposal. 1 neutral representation has been received in support of the proposal. Further details of all representations are provided within the committee report. There are no outstanding objections from technical consultees, with protracted negotiations having taken place between the applicant and Lancashire County Council Highway Services in relation to the access to Grove Farm Drive, which is now proposed as a cycle and pedestrian access route, with an emergency access to be provided via Heighton Road. The only permanent access for vehicles will be via Rossendale Drive. Whilst the Highways Authority have stated they would not adopt the roads within the application site, as Rossendale Drive is currently unadopted, they have recommended conditions for the management and maintenance of the proposed streets. Members will be aware of the Council's housing land shortfall and the fact that the tilted balance of paragraph 11D of the framework must be applied to the Council's determination of this application. Core Strategy 1 sets out the locations for growth and investment across central Lancashire and identifies Adlington as an urban local service centre where some growth and investment will be encouraged to help meet housing and employment needs. Located on the edge of the settlement, the site is in an accessible and sustainable location within a reasonable walking distance of bus stops, community facilities, schools and shops that will provide for the day-to-day needs of residents. The proposed development is considered to be consistent with Policy 1 of the Core Strategy. That said, whilst Policy 1 is not out of date, it forms part of a strategy which is failing to deliver a sustainable level of housing. As such, the policy can only be afforded moderate weight in the planning balance. The application site is located within land designated as safeguarded land under Policy BNE3 of the Chorley Local Plan. Policy BNE3 is a restraint policy and states that development other than that permissible in the Greenbelt or area of other open countryside will not be permitted on safeguarded land. The proposal is therefore contrary to Policy BNE3. The policy is, however, out of date and can only be afforded limited weight in the planning balance. In terms of benefits, the provision of new housing would bring construction and supply chain jobs, places for the economically active to live, increased local spend and greater choice in the local market. These benefits have not been quantified, would apply to any housing developments of this scale and are still considerable. The scheme will deliver a policy-compliant livable of affordable homes to the area, of which there is significantly a shortfall across the borough. The proposal would boost the supply of housing in a situation where there is no 5-year supply and an under-provision of affordable housing, and as a result, moderate weight can be given to the economic and significant weight to the social benefits the proposal would deliver. It is considered that the adverse impacts of the proposed development relating to its conflict with Policy BNE3 would not significantly and demonstrably outweigh the economic and social benefits the proposal would deliver. As such, the proposal is recommended for approval, subject to conditions and a Section 106 legal agreement as set out in the main report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mike. Over to you, members. Somebody, anybody? Councillor Whittaker.
Well, I'll start, Chairman. If we were I have some sympathy with the people that object here. And if we were masters in our own house, I would be sympathetic to what's being proposed. But as the report says, thanks to a flawed government policy about 5-year supply being necessary, and apparently from recent today's announcements by the Secretary of State that we've got to go ahead with these things. There's evidence there with Coppell, Eccleston, Wilton, John at Richard, where we've had these things before us, we've turned them down, gone to appeal, inspector walks them through. It's ridiculous. The government policy is ridiculous, but we are where we are. So I'm unhappy to propose the officer's recommendation, Chair.
Councillor Snow, Councillor Hill.
I think Councillor Whittaker has put it very succinctly. Go on at length here, describing the hypocritical voice of Michael Gove. Today, we have to support this. So I'm happy to second Councillor Whittaker's proposition.
Yeah, I was going to make the same comment. Really, we have a tilted balance. It's safeguarded land, but we have to take it as it is in the situation we're in. So yeah, I support the application as well.
Anyone else wish to say anything? Councillor Southern.
Thank you, Chair. It's the same old diatribe. It's the government, it's the government, it's the government. No. It's a local plan we require. It's down to us to set the local plan. We say what we want, and in the absence of that, this is what you've got to build. It's as simple as that. Now, I have sympathy, as Councillor Whittaker and Councillor Snow has made the point. I don't particularly want to see this developed. It's greenfield, and we are in a bind because we are caught between a rock and a hard place. But I'm sorry, with the absence of a local plan, we've no option but to take this recommendation. It's as simple as that.
Thank you. Don't think we might all agree with that, but we are where we are. Any more comments? If not, I'll move to the vote. All those in favour of the officer recommendation, please show. Here it is. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So members have unanimously decided to grant permission in respect of this application for the erection of 137 dwellings, of which 30% will be affordable, together with associated roads, car parking and landscaping works at land adjacent to Rossendale Drive, Adlington. That is subject to conditions and a Section 106 agreement, and the aspects around that are outlined in the report.
Thank you, Taz. I'm going to move on to item 3C and 3D, which we will do one preamble, please, but I will take the vote separately. It's head of Marsh Farms, excuse me, Sandy Lane, Brindle, pages 117 to 154 and 155 to 180. Mike's going to present this item. Officer recommendation, planning permission is granted subject to the conditions outlined, and the other is that listed building consent is granted subject to conditions. I have two registered speakers, the ward councillor, Councillor McGovern, and the applicant, Louise Leyland. Mike, can you please present the report?
Thank you, Chair. The site is located in the Greenbelt in the rural locality of Brindle and contains a cluster of buildings of varying age, type and construction, most of which have been used for agriculture and one for non-agricultural use. The Grade 2 listed building, head of the Marsh farmhouse, is also located immediately to the east of the site. The immediate locality is predominantly rural, characterised by agricultural land, farmsteads and individual dwellings. Full planning permission is sought for the conversion of a barn to form 4 dwellings, the erection of 3 dwellings and a detached carport, following the demolition of 5 existing buildings. Listed building consent is also sought for the conversion of the barn, which is a curtilage listed building. The applicant has submitted evidence which sufficiently demonstrates that part of the site, identified as Building B on the submitted plans, has been used for caravan storage and falls within the definition of previously developed land as contained in the National Planning Policy Framework. The framework specifically allows for the conversion of allows for the extension to buildings, the reuse of buildings, and the redevelopment of previously developed sites in the Greenbelt as exceptions to inappropriate development. A full assessment of the proposal is contained in the committee report, and members will note that officers do not consider the proposed development would have a greater impact on the openness of the Greenbelt than the existing development. The proposal satisfies exceptions G of paragraph 154 and exception D of paragraph 155 of the framework and is not therefore inappropriate development in the Greenbelt. Very special circumstances do not need to be demonstrated, therefore, for this proposal. There are no outstanding objections to the scheme from technical consultees and no representations have been received. The Council's heritage advisors welcome the proposed changes and taking the site as a whole, they state that the reduction in buildings across the site would be seen as a positive change and would benefit the setting of the listed farmhouse. On this basis, it is not considered that the proposed scheme would cause any discernible harm to the significance of the heritage assets on the site and would, with the proposed demolition and general clearance of modern agricultural sheds, provide some improvement to the appreciation of the principal listed building. The proposal would not adversely affect neighbouring residential amenity and would provide acceptable living conditions for future occupants of the development. The proposed development is considered to be well designed and would not be harmful to the character and appearance of the area. The officer recommendation is to approve, subject to conditions, and Section 106 agreement as outlined in the main committee report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor McGovern, would you like to speak now, please?
Oh, both have come on.
Yeah, you're right.
Should it be two? Yeah. Oh, right. Okay. Okay. I wish to speak as a ward councillor in opposition to this application. With a cold. I speak on behalf of Brindle Parish Council, who have two concerns. The first is that adding 7 dwellings to this greenbelt farm is an over-intensification of the site. Now, over-intensification is not well defined in planning, but we know what it means. In this case, it means turning what was recently a working farm into a small housing estate in the country. In addition, by using weatherboard cladding and metal roofing, it becomes a modern, anonymous little housing estate rather than a traditional enclave of stone and slate buildings, as is found, for example, at the former farm site of Briar's Brow in Brindle, which is superb. And we can be sure that the development at Marsh Farm will not be affordable housing either, because it never is when people build in Greenbelt around Brindle. But local farming families really do need accommodation in the area. This leads to the second concern of the Parish Council. Along with 7 new dwellings, there will be 20 parking spaces. Vehicles from this development will have egress onto Sandy Lane. For those who don't know this area, this is a narrow, bendy, national speed limit lane that provides a major route from Brindle to Blackburn and Preston. And here is the most important issue with this lane. The location of this site is on the most dangerous bend on this road. At this point, the lane, you can't see in the photograph, but it's actually a lazy W, if that makes sense. With Marsh Farm on the apex of the middle point. visibility is very restricted. I appreciate that our LCC experts, as a statutory consultee, have found no transport issues associated with this site. However, they also provide no discussion of this issue in their documents, which are the LCC Highways Comments documents and the Design and Access Statement. At present, there is only one property that routinely has egress onto Sandy Lane at this point. And obviously, there are no transport issues. As a local with intimate knowledge of this area, I know that 20 extra vehicles entering and leaving Sandy Lane at the apex of this dangerous bend are likely to cause road accidents. If the council are minded to grant these two applications, I really urge them to do a site visit first to assess the situation on the ground. Thank you.
Thank you. Have I got Louise Leyland, please? Yeah, you'd be better to come. Yeah.
Thank you. I'm the agent for the application and have been involved with the site for a number of years. As outlined in the officer's report, the proposed development fully complies with the council's policies on development in the Greenbelt, both regarding the conversion of the existing barn and the development of the new dwellings on previously developed land. The removal of the modern farm buildings would result in the overall decrease in built development across the site of 81%. Not only will this significantly increase openness across the site, having a positive impact on the Greenbelt, it will also have a positive, direct positive impact on the Grade 2 listed farmhouse, and the Council's heritage advisors are supportive of the scheme. There have been no objections from any members of the public. All of the concerns raised by the Parish Council have been assessed by statutory consultees and addressed by the case officer, and in all respects the proposals have been found to be acceptable. I'd also like to point out that the access points proposed for the scheme are the existing ones that serve the working farm and the farmhouse that's on site as well. The design of the proposals was discussed with the council at length prior to the application being submitted, and we've taken on board the design comments and suggestions from officers and the council's heritage advisor in arriving at this scheme. And it was actually the council's heritage advisor that advised the materials that were used in the final proposal. The proposals have a strong agricultural character, which is appropriate for this location. The proposals will see the retained buildings used sustainably, improvements to the setting of a listed building, a positive impact on the openness of the Greenbelt, and overall this will result in a high quality development which is appropriate in this rural location. The scheme will also make a positive but valuable contribution to housing numbers in Chorley. I hope the committee will support this application in line with the officer's recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. Over to you, members. Councillor Hilton.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I quite like this application. It's going to potentially improve a heritage asset. The overall volume, I believe, is less. It will have lesser effect on the Greenbelt, so I'm quite happy to propose officer recommendations. Thank you.
I'm happy to second Alex's proposition. I think it will significantly improve the landscape in this area. It's quite a sympathetic alteration. There are some concerns actually. The road is quite a dangerous road, but I don't think it significantly adds to that. So I'm happy with this application.
Thank you, Chair. I have a soft spot for farms. I don't like to see farmers go. as a kid, I spent a lot of time on farms, so that's where that comes in. That said, I would far sooner see farm buildings, agricultural buildings like this repurposed or rebuilt, sympathetic. The music that's been put back in terms of design fits, the scale fits. I would, if I'm minded to agree with this, I'd like to pop a condition on there if I can. Would that be possible? Cal? Yeah. Yeah, just make sure that the 5-car carport stays as a 5-car carport and doesn't get turned into another gymnasium to suit. But apart from that, I think it's a good proposal. I think it works and it fits, and I'm pleased to see that the existing farm building's being repurposed. That's always important, and I think the proposition in terms of the new build, despite its agricultural look, I think actually works, quite frankly. It's quite innovative. So, yes, I'd be happy to support that. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, a condition restricting future permitted development rights wouldn't meet the tests, and it wouldn't be reasonable, particularly in an instance where there is over provision within the development anyway. So I couldn't advise you that would be an appropriate condition.
But you got where I was coming from. Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. Some sympathy with the ward councillor's point that were made there. The one thing about this, as I understand it, is that the Grade 2 listed building will remain. Looking at some of the pictures that we saw, there's an old barn type thing which doesn't contribute anything. But as we've seen, lots of farms like this are becoming redundant in terms of farming activities. The people can't make a living out of this desire. I don't know the site at all. You know, I'll go along with what the members think, but I mean, some of the issues that the ward councillor talked about on that road are quite hazardous in my view. And I was going to propose a site visit so that we could all be familiar with what's being proposed. Having had some sympathy with the development, you know, 5 houses, retaining the Grade 2 listed building is important. I'll not propose that at this stage, sure. I'll just make that point, if I may.
Anybody else wish to make any comment? If not, I'll move to the vote. No? So we'll do 3C first, which is the conversion of the barn. And that. All those in favour of the officer recommendation, please show.
Thank you, Chair. So members have decided to grant planning permission in respect of the conversion of barn to form 4 dwellings, erection of 3 dwellings and detached carport following demolition of 5 existing buildings at Head Off Marsh Farm. That is obviously subject to conditions of the Section 106 legal agreement as outlined in the report.
Thanks, Taz. And then item 3D is the application for listed building consent for the conversion of said barn. All those in favour of the officer recommendation?
Thank you, Chair. So members have decided to grant listed building consent for the conversion of barn to form 4 dwellings, and that is at Head Off Marsh Farm, Sandy Lane, and that is subject to conditions as well. Thank you.
Ulnes, Walton Lane, pages 181 to 206. Adele's going to present this item. Let me just check. The officer recommendation is reserve matters consent granted. I've no registered speakers. Over to you, Adele.
Thank you, Chair. This application seeks reserved matters consent for the appearance and landscaping of the development pursuant to outline planning permission reference, that's detailed in the report, which was granted for the erection of 5 dwellings, including access, layout and scale, following the partial demolition of the Equestrian Centre buildings in October 2020. The application site is located in the Greenbelt and comprises a number of buildings that form an established commercial equestrian centre. The site is previously developed in line with the definitions set out in the National Planning Policy Framework, and the acceptability of the principle of the development is established under the provisions of the outline planning permission. The scale of the dwellings reflects the terms of the outline consent, and the proposed house types are of a design that is not uncommon to the area, whilst the use of 3 different house types provides variety. The dwellings display a suitable degree of interest, and the landscaping would frame the development and soften its appearance. It is therefore recommended that this reserve matters application is approved. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Over to you, members. Councillor Whittaker, Councillor Morwood.
Thanks, Chair. I recognise this is a reserve matters application. The principle has been approved, and I know this site very well, but I noticed that the Equestrian Centre will remain. And the question I wanted to ask is, where will the access be, and where will the parking be for all the vehicles that inevitably will go to visit the Equestrian Centre?
Thank you. Through you, Chair. The access will remain as existing for the Equestrian Centre, so it'll be a different access, and they'll have their own defined parking area. So the actual housing development will be a discrete development. I think it's shown in the presentation on the location plan.
If you look at that, look at the edge, the highlighted in red, the rectangle at the bottom is the building, the Equestrian Centre, and they can't get through the main plot where the houses are going to be. I assume they're going to go along the outside of that track, or alternative thing, and around the back. And
Apologies if I've not explained it clearly. It won't go through the proposed housing scheme. The access from the Ulnes Walton Lane will be effectively shared, and then there'll be an access road that will skirt round the back of the houses to the Equestrian Centre. So the facilities for the Equestrian Centre will be contained within effectively their revised curtilage. So if you have a look on that plan, the red line shows the extent of the approved housing development, and then the blue line shows the extent of the Equestrian Centre that's retained. So you can see you come in off Ulnes Walton Lane, and then immediately to the left there's an access through onto an access road that you'll follow round to the Equestrian Centre.
I understand that, Chair. Knowing the site, the front part where the houses are going to go is already full. With when people use the Equestrian Centre, there's a stable block, for example, and a cafe down there. Can we assume that, and that circle I think is an exercise thing for the horses. What I'm wondering is, can we expect yet another application for more houses on this site when that goes on? We don't know. But I realise this is just a detail matter, but it's worth flagging it up for the officers, Chair. That's what I'm trying to do.
Councillor Morwood.
I was just thinking that through. I think this is an excellent development, and the Equestrian Centre will have its own access road, so people won't be going through the actual housing estate. So I'm happy to. I don't know. Has it been Proposed, right, I do propose acceptance of the officer's recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Southern.
Sorry, Chair. I'll second Councillor Morwood's proposition, Chair. It's a little bit bittersweet because I've always referred to this as South Fork. When you drive down Walton Lane and you look at it there, the part that actually frames the equestrian part is a drive-through, and I always call it South Fork. But to concur with Councillor Morwood, I think it's a good little development, and they've also tucked another house behind Walton Lodge, which I think works very well. So I'd have no problem with this, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Any more comments? Councillor Morwood.
Just to be frivolous, after the meeting, perhaps you'll explain South Fork to the younger members of the committee. Thank you.
Some of us know what you mean. If nobody else wishes to comment, I'll move to the vote. All those in favour of the officer recommendation, please show. Thanks, Taz.
Thank you, Chair. So the committee have decided to grant the reserved matters consent that will the detail of appearance and landscaping subject to conditions in respect of the Eccleston Equestrian Centre, Ulnes, Walton Lane. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Taz. Moving, no, there isn't anybody here for that. Item 3F, land on the south side of Town Lane, Whittle-Le-Woods, pages 207 to 226, with an update on your addendum. Adele's going to present this item. The recommendation remains permission in principle is granted. I have two registered speakers, an objector, Roger Tyrer, and the agent, Mark Flighty. Adele, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. The application site is located on the southern side of Town Lane at its junction with Dart Lane. The settlement of Wilton is located approximately 350 metres to the east of the site along Town Lane, and the application site is located within the green belt and currently comprises an open field. The application seeks permission in principle for the erection of one dwelling, and as members will be aware, the permission in principle route is an alternative way of obtaining planning permission for housing-led development, which separates the consideration of matters of principle for the proposed development from the technical detail of the development. The permission in principle consent route has two stages. The first stage establishes whether or not a site is suitable in principle, and the second stage is when the detailed development proposals are assessed. The application site has a width of approximately 60 metres, which is less than applications allowed at appeal and similar to the neighbouring dwelling to the northwest. Other than the application site, the street frontage is unbroken. It is considered that the application site is in a sustainable location with the characteristics of a village and represents limited infilling within a village. Objections and comments have been received relating to a number of issues that are not matters that fall within the scope of the consideration of the permission in principle consent stage, and these matters would be addressed as part of the technical details consent, which is the second stage of the process. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Adele. Have we got Roger, please? Okay, would you like to?
Ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Before I begin, I think it's important to point out two items on the application report to this committee that very much concern me. Item 8, Whittle-Le-Woods Parish Council, no comments have been received. The Parish Council, as a consultee, submitted lengthy comments, yet they're not listed under item 8. This omission may show that the Parish Council have no objections and sway members' vote tonight.
Excuse me, that's on the addendum.
That's come through, has it?
That's part on the
You've
addendum.
got it? Okay, well, that's great. It wasn't there. And point 2, at the end of this application report in front of you, under the heading Relevant History, point 25, last page, 7 planning applications are shown as relating to the history of development of this green site. Not one of these 7 has any relevance to the application site under consideration. This matter was raised with Mr Powers, who assured us that this would be corrected. It's inconceivable that the planning department has not fully checked the planning reference numbers of all 7 applications listed, which begs the question, why have they been put forward after such scrutiny? I speak for the residents who live in the area around this piece of land, a supportive community to which many of us have belonged for generations, my own family's for over 100 years. The area is defined as green belt in the Chorley local plan, 2012 to 2026, there are no special circumstances that could justify the harm caused to the green belt. The development, therefore, is contrary to the National Planning Policy Framework, Chapter 13 BNE1. The proposal will not improve the environment, but will deter from the open aspect of the greenfield site, which is currently and has always been used for cattle and sheep pasture. The loss of this grazing will impact on the livelihood and income of the long-term tenant farmer using it. The site of the huge imposing building development put forward is a section of wildlife corridor linking the West Pennine Moors with Brindle and beyond. Its character unchanged for nearly 200 years. A greenfield pasture in the heart of the protected green belt itself, within a knot of already dangerously overused country lanes with poor visibility. Green belt to most people means secure protected land, a place where deer can and do run free, animals can nest and feed. We now feel that this doesn't seem to mean this at all, if the rules can be bent to fit the requirement. In Greenbelt policy, it states that inappropriate development, by definition harmful to Greenbelt, should not be approved except in very special circumstances, and that rural infill is the filling of a small gap within a built-up frontage, much like an example recently built at the bottom of Dark Lane, between numbers 1 and 3. Neither of these points apply. There are no exceptional circumstances put forward to develop this site, sympathetically or appropriately, with, for example, agricultural buildings or perhaps a riding stable or such like. Nor does the construction of a building over twice the size of any other in the area, in the middle of a virgin greenfield, between one far-removed residence, West-Le, and the end of Dark Lane, qualify as infill, as guidelines describe such. This, incidentally, would also significantly impair visibility of traffic coming in all directions between Dark Lane, Town Lane and Copthurst. Access to the field onto Town Lane opposes Copthurst Lane, Dark Lane Junction onto Town Lane. I've just got two lines. 2 lines it is, love. Dark Lane Junction onto Town Lane abuts the west side of the field. Sight lines are severely restricted, both east and west, and many accidents have occurred. There is more, but that'll have to do. 3 minutes.
Rules are 3 minutes, you knew that. I'm sorry. Excuse me. Thank you. Thank you. Oh. I can have you removed from the room, I don't mind. Whatever. Mark, would you like to speak now, please? As long as you don't call me love, you're fine.
Try not to. Good evening, Chair, members. I'm the agent here to represent the applicant. So the applicant proposes to build a single dwelling for them and their family to live in. This is therefore a self-build home, as encouraged by policy. The home would be well proportioned and sit comfortably into its generous sized plot, ensuring a sense of openness and nature is maintained. While not directly relevant to this particular application, the applicant has made it known that they wish to maintain the vast majority of trees presently sited along the boundary of the plot, with the aim of providing mutual privacy and to maintain the appearance of the street scene. What the applicant is not proposing, although others may have done, is to build several new dwellings on the site. That would have been a completely different proposal, requiring careful consideration of the effects on the local highway network, as well as the capacity of local schools and surgeries, for example, accounting for what would have been a notable increase in the number of residents in the area. Instead, the proposal would see a single family join a local community by way of building a so-called infill dwelling to be located amongst several existing houses and functioning as part of the local settlements. The principle of such a proposal has been deemed acceptable in appeal decisions relating to similar proposals elsewhere in Chorley, as referred to in the officer's report. Very special circumstances for developing in the Greenbelt do not need to be demonstrated on this occasion. The location could comfortably sustain this modest addition, being located a short distance from the range of local services and amenities in both Walton and Whittle-Le-Woods. For clarity, this application seeks permission for the principle of locating a single dwelling on this particular plot and nothing else. If granted, a future application would seek approval for all other matters, including the design, scale and appearance of the dwelling and other matters relevant to the protection of the environment. The committee is respectfully requested to approve the application. Thank you.
Thank you. Adele, you.
Yes, I just want to make a few points of clarification. I'm sure members of the committee will be fully aware with the provisions of the National Planning Policy Framework and what it says about greenbelt development. And just to remind members that not all greenbelt development is inappropriate development. National Planning Policy does allow for certain types of development, including infill. And because this development constitutes essentially infill development in the greenbelt, it is not inappropriate development. And therefore, the test of very special circumstances doesn't need to be met. So I just want to clarify that point. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks. Over to you, members. Councillor France.
Thank you, Chair. I do know this site and I do have concerns. It's only recently myself and County Council Snape spent an awful long while on Town Lane getting the speed limit reduced from 60 mile an hour to 40 mile an hour. Relatively recently, with a vehicle come out of Town Lane and go front first into one of the cottages. There's parking on here. The access to this site being level with Copthurst Lane, with Dark Lane, which is another thing, you struggle on Dark Lane to get two cars to pass. And up until recently, until myself and Councillor Snape got involved, it was national speed limit. 30 mile at the bottom when it was wider and national speed limit at the top, which was absolutely ridiculous. Anyway, we did get that changed. So I do have highway concerns about this, and I think the access personally is dangerous, but the highway experts haven't said anything. And I notice it is a permission in principle.
Councillor Hilton.
Yes, Councillor Grant, it is just that, a permission in principle. So highways will be technical consultees at the next stage of this development. So I think, as Adele has said, and as the agent here has said, this is about the principle of development in this area, and that is all that this is about. I believe that this meets all appropriate sort of policies and procedures, as Adele's already recommended. It is clearly infill. I'm actually quite happy with this application for a permission in principle as it stands at the moment. All the other sort of technical consultations will occur at the next stage from here. So just to remind members of that. So yeah, again, happy to propose officer recommendations here, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I think the question here on this planning and principle application is, as what had been muted by the applicant, which is, do you want one house or do you want 20? Now, if we were looking at more than one house, I would have concerns over this. As it is, this is a planning in principle, and I think lots to play for in terms of design. So I'd be happy to second Councillor Hilton's proposition there. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody else wish to make any comment? If not, I'll move to the vote. All those in favour of the officer recommendation, please show. Okay.
Thank you, Chair. So members have decided to grant permission in principle in respect of the erection of one dwelling at land on the south side of Town Lane, Whittle-Le-Woods. Thank you.
Thank you. With that, that's the end of business tonight. Thank you for your attendance. It's our last meeting this year. So I will see you again in the new year, and I hope you have a happy and peaceful Christmas.